Morning, everybody. Well, I'm not really sure if it's morning for you, but it's certainly morning for me. I usually like to film these videos kind of later in the afternoon so I can shower and like get ready and wake up and all of that stuff. But this is not gonna turn into a time for me to vent about optimal filming time. Long story short, my room gets really hot in the day. The sun's setting a lot earlier now. Today, we're just gonna wake up writing. I've already skipped my morning reading and put my contacts on instead of wearing my glasses after first waking up, so I just don't want to hear it. Let's just wake up writing today. Got my little Eeyore coffee mug. This is my literal morning cup of coffee, so yeah. You looking to thicken your plot out there? I sure hope so, because that is what we are going to talk about today here on Write On In. Welcome back, welcome here. I can't believe this is like, I don't know, like the 12th or 13th episode or something maybe. Kinda crazy. For those of you who do not know, my name is Andrew J. Stillman, and I am in the middle of guiding us through the novel writing process. We've covered a few topics over the 10 or so videos that I have been around, but recently and for the next month or so, these videos are particularly tailored toward National Novel Writing Month or just any time of the year that you're trying to write a book. You are going to write your own novel through these tutorials. We're not going to collectively write one together. Although, now that I've said that out loud, I'd kind of be down for some sort of like past the sentence type of story like that to see what happens. Like real talk, now that I've said that out loud, let me know if you're interested in that. You know, like when you write down a sentence and then you pass it on and then the first sentence is folded and then you pass it on and then at the end it's like the whole story from the sentences passed forward. That's not at all what we're talking about today, but for real, if you're interested, let me know. As it is, like I said, we are just going to talk about the development of your novel. So without further ado, let's get right on in. If you have been around and stuck with me for the last few episodes, you will have seen me discuss where ideas come from, choosing my genre, and creating my characters with some upfront personality traits. We also have been over cliches and tropes and all of that kind of good stuff as well. I was definitely a little drunkies for the character development video, but that's fine because number one, you didn't see the majority of that drunk footage, trust me. And two, some writers drink when they develop characters and plots and stuff. Anybody ever read Stephen King? Today, we will be covering some of the tropes specifically for dark fantasy in just a little bit more detail, specifically because of the tropes that I'm going to be using for this novel that I'm developing with you. Since we just touched on that topic the other day, I'm going to go over a little bit more about utilizing research of your genre and its accompanying tropes to help you build your story. We're also going to develop a little bit more of our characters, especially if you, like me, haven't really done any of the questionnaires for them or really done much development past like the naming. And then we're also going to at least get introduced to our setting before we get into that in more detail next week. Using the tropes and the characters that we are already familiar with, we are going to discuss plot arcs and character arcs, and then by the end of this video, you'll basically have a back of the book description of your work in progress. If you're already starting to feel that itch to start writing and just get right on in, I actually encourage you to hone in on that feeling of excitement and just let it grow and grow and grow. Because if it starts to just become unbearable, then that just means that once November 1st hits, you are going to be more than ready to get right on in. If you think that your book is going to be longer than 50,000 words and you think you can handle starting it now, go for it. So you will see in a minute, I'll be pulling up all of my stuff so that you can continue seeing the screen recordings like I did the last time. But you'll notice that if you did watch that character tutorial video, my names are going to be looking just a little bit different than the ones that I chose. Because what I had meant to say in that video before the wine really took effect. And I'm serious, none of you really know how drunk I was for that. It was wild. But I meant to say to use the generators and stuff that I was showing you all as a guideline and as a basis, and not as much about like actually choosing the name from there. I also ordered a cool 8 books to go along with this. I know this is just 3, but that's because 5 of them are actually on the Kindle. One of them was a bundle price for 4 books, and I've only read 1 and probably will only just read the 1. But that was The Queen's Executioner, and that review is definitely already up. And the one here for Piranesi. I chose these because when I said that piece about understanding your genre and reading widely throughout it, I just went over to the Amazon Kindle and I went to the dark fantasy genre section, and I just looked at the top 50 books, narrowed it down to the top 15, and started just reading through the plot lines until I picked 5 books that I just thought sounded interesting enough to read. What I thought and still think was really interesting about the top selling books is that this one here, Piranesi by Susanna Clarke, is actually, or was at that time, the only traditionally published book. All of the other ones, especially all the other ones that I chose, were self-published. I just think that that's interesting, especially because of the whole debate versus self-publishing versus traditional publishing, and that just goes to show that even self-published books can sell and hit the top, even if they're not that great, which I've run into a couple of times. Some of these books haven't been my favorite, it's just gonna be how it is. As far as the self-publishing goes though, at least as of this recording, I have to finish this one and read one other one, but this is my favorite self-published book so far, by far. But reading these, honestly, has been very beneficial for the development of my book, at least. Just to put it kind of out there for anybody, I recorded that character development video on August 31st. It is currently September 21st, so I've gone a few weeks because I've been reading through these, and I've been reading through Tropes, and I've been doing a lot of stuff on my end to get this video ready. I haven't even officially written out my plot yet. I'll be doing that for myself in this video because I still don't really know what I'm gonna be doing, but I have a lot more ideas, and I really like having read through all of these books. They've all taught me something. I mean, this one, just because we're here while we're at it, this one inspired me to look into mythology. I have Vaeda as my main character, and it's so weird to me because I was drunk in that video and I randomly chose the letter V because it's my favorite letter, and I randomly clicked on Vaeda because it was the first name that I saw. In that video I said that it was Indian knowledge. I meant Indian origin because I was just drunk, but it meant eternal knowledge. So I chose that book because I was like, sweet, that's awesome. I really enjoy that. And then after I read this book and was inspired by its use of Greek mythology, I decided to go and look up some Hindu mythology for my character. And that is when I found out that the Vedas are like the source of knowledge. I don't really want to get too much into all of that today, but over the last few days especially, I've been reading a lot about the Vedas, and it's helped a lot in the development of my book, and honestly has personally become a reason, like what I said, read and read widely. This book has also helped influence my philosophy and the idea of just what it means to exist as a human being. And I really enjoyed the depiction of slavery in The Queen's Executioner, and then I really like the action and just the writing style so far of this one. And even though I still have to finish this one and I still have another one to read, Pilgrim by Harmon Cooper, I'm at least excited about getting started with what I've already been through so far. And I mean, I've been kind of putting this video off for a while because I wanted to read through these and kind of, I guess, practice what I preached in that sense. But the whole thing about reading in your genre isn't for the purpose of copying anybody else. It's really just all about influence and inspiration. And it's all about developing your own voice, which that video is coming out in a couple of days. You just can't really know much about the development of your voice without researching how it already fits into the mold, especially if that is a mold you are trying to break. Alright, well, as you can see here on my screen, I have some examples of what dark fantasy is, some definitions, examples, all that, and whatever. I've obviously already read through this to both look for and assess these type of themes within the books that I'm reading, as well as considering how I am going to take what I learn and mold my own story around these tropes that I'm using right here, or what I've found, like I said, from these other books as well. Also, try and remember that your book can fit into multiple different genres or categories, so mix it up if you don't want to stick to just one parent category. For now, I'm just sticking here with this dark fantasy just because I don't want to get too crazy. I've already kind of added in the mythologically inspired part of it, like what my friend had tried to tell me to do when she sent me the genres originally. So I'm just going to go through here. Let me see. By here I'm going to do tropes, traits of dark fantasy. Alright. So for dark fantasy, I'm definitely going to make sure that I keep the deliberately dark, ominous tone. This particular article, as you can see down here, also talks about the difference between dark fantasy and the difference between the dark fantasy subgenre and the grimdark subgenre. And grimdark is like dark, there's no hope, there's no nothing. Dark fantasy just has more of those darker type of elements. Again, the gloomy atmosphere and the emphasis of horror, which is something I'm also going to write down here. I love horror. I'm sorry, I can't help it. I love writing horror. I don't actually like reading or watching horror because then it scares me. But so, I don't know. And so I can't read and watch widely in the horror genre, so I can't really write as many horror books, and that's on me. We also have lack of heroes, which is going to be something that I'm going to have like one main hero, Vaeda, and then everybody else is going to not be a hero in this book, I think. And I'm also going to keep here evil can win. Even though I don't really know if that's going to happen or not in this book, I'm going to keep that evil can if they so desire. So now this, as well as those characters that I've already started to kind of dabble with, at least give me an idea of the type of story that I'm going for. One that is dark and ominous, has elements of horror, and evil can win. Even though, like I said, I'm still not really sure if that will happen or not, but it's a possibility. So if you're down there in the description box today, you will probably notice that there are a lot of different links. One of those is to a 2016 article published by The Atlantic about the 6 common archetypes found within plot structures that was determined by an artificial intelligence. The study itself came from a 1980s lecture from Kurt Vonnegut, which also is linked down in the description box. Basically what he said, without really trying to get too into the sciences or the long story short kind of thing, Vonnegut claims that it is common thought that basically any story falls into one of 6 plot arcs. Number 1, rags to riches, in which basically the character goes from a nobody to a somebody, like Matilda. Number 2, riches to rags, which is when someone goes from a somebody to a nobody. Think Dorian Gray. Number 3, man in a hole, which is essentially when the character falls down only to rise up again. Think about Alice in Wonderland, although your character doesn't literally have to actually physically fall into a hole. Number 4, Icarus, which is essentially when the character rises up only to fall again. Think Hunger Games. Number 5, Cinderella. This is one of the most common arcs in that the character usually rises, then falls, and then rises again. I mean, you can basically think of any Disney movie for this, but with Cinderella in particular, she rises up to the ball, loses her shoe, falls back down to what she was, and then the prince comes and finds her. She rises back up again. Number 6. This is sign language for 6, by the way. 6, 7, 8, 9, and this is 3. Side lesson for you all. Number 6, Oedipus. When the character falls and then rises and then falls again. Think about Frankenstein. There are so many things about so many things about so many things that I could go over here, but similarly to all of the other tutorials that I have for this month in particular, I don't want you to get too stressed out about any of this extra stuff. I just want you to focus on getting out the first draft of your story. Personally, I think that I might be going for the Icarus storyline in here. I'm not all the way sure just yet. I just feel like that one maybe kind of fits best into the dark fantasy category, so for now, at least, I think that that's what I'm gonna go with. In the description box down below, I also included a link to the Write Practice, and you can see some more depth and detail on this storyline arc from there. And in a couple of weeks, we're also going to talk about one of the articles that I wrote for them and use the same exercise. But that article that I was just mentioning about, that's currently linked in the description box, also reinforces the commonly held beliefs that the Icarus, Oedipus, and Man in a Whole story arcs tend to do the best. Okay, so now that we have the plot archetype decided, even though you didn't watch me write it down, but here I'm gonna write it down. Icarus story. Now it's written down. So with that archetype decided, before I get into the plot of the story itself, I'm going to remember that the majority of all stories follow a relatively similar sequence of events. Number 1, the exposition, which is essentially just when everything's introduced. Number 2, the rising action, which is basically just what happens as we move toward. Number 3, the climax. This is when we are at the breaking point, the pivotal moment of the story. What we have been waiting for, and everything that has built up to this point. It is then followed by number 4, the falling action, which is when we basically just start to bring down the intensity and move into number 5, the resolution, which thus it's basically just the conclusion or the resolution of everything that has happened in the sequence of events that have led us to the end of the story. Again, down in that description box today, there are links galore to all sorts of different articles, videos, books, on these types of topics. These tutorials, again, are really just meant to be very beginner and very introductory, but there's so much more that you can learn out there, and I recommend for you to, again, read as much as you can, as widely as possible, because reading, like writing, doesn't always have to just be books. As for me, though, right now, I am actually about to officially write the plot of my story, which is so weird because I've been thinking about this for almost a month now, and I still don't really know what's gonna happen. This is a perfect time to get it done, though. Just another sunny day in Southern California. Okay, well, I'm just gonna go ahead and leave this up for you all right now if you want to read through it. It only took me about 5 minutes to write this up, even though I've been thinking about it for a while. But I've been sitting here right now for about 30 minutes because apparently today is garbage day and hedge cleaning day, and I'm totally respectful of people having jobs, but it's kind of frustrating when you're trying to do your own job and then they're making so much noise with their wind blowers and you look outside to see what's taking them so long and they have it pointed up their shirt, blowing wind at their face. Anyway, Now that we are done with this, as always, this is gonna be available on my website for anyone who actually wants to read through it all if you haven't. For now, I am going to just remove it from the screen and continue on with the tutorial. I also said at the beginning of this video that we were briefly going to be meeting our setting today, and if you did just read my little current plot, you will see that I bolded this thing that said name city because I haven't gotten to the setting yet. And if you did read that plot, it's also just the rough draft plot idea. So I don't know, again, this is like an example book, so it's just weird. I don't know, I'm like trying to take it serious, but at the same time, like it's not a story that's come to me, and I've said that before, so actually just trying to develop it like this has been a very interesting experience. So for you, I mean, you may already have your country chosen or your world chosen, or if you are doing it on Earth, then I mean, that's gonna make this obviously a lot easier for you. But as for me, I obviously still have a couple of decisions to make regarding all of that. I'm just not gonna worry about it until the next video. I do know though that I don't want this book that I'm writing to take place on Earth, but I also think that I want it to end on Earth. So we're just gonna take that as it goes. I mean, you're gonna know everything about this book. I'm gonna spoil it all for you, so it's fine because you're gonna be with me for the whole process. But as of right now, I'm really thinking that wherever they're trapped in this cave, the ultimate idea is getting out of this pit that they're in. And it's the idea of, you know, out of hell and into heaven is gonna be kind of, I guess, what I'm ultimately gonna go for with this. But again, I'm recording these kind of long before they're actually going to be published, so whatever's on my website is probably still going to even look different than what you see here after I put some more development myself. Right now, I'm honestly just kind of taking whatever spare time I have on other works in progress that I had going on before this, so that once November hits, I can actually focus on this with you. Anyway, now that we've got the plot lines and story arcs and all of that all figured out, we are going to do at least one character arc for our main character or anybody else that you want to decide on. I'm personally going to stick with the main character, Vaeda. And we are going to decide what specific story arc he's gonna have, or for you, whatever story arc you are going to choose for whatever character you're about to do. Again, there are a million references right down in the description box for the most popular articles on Google for this kind of stuff, at least as of the time of this recording. A lot of stuff you'll find from like back in the 90s and all that kind of good stuff, but writers always have to figure out a way to say the same things with their own new twist. So I think it's always good to read around and see what other people are saying, especially in more recent days. So the character arc obviously focuses on the growth or the change of whatever character. So it decides obviously who they are at the start and then how they change throughout the course of events and who they are at the end. Types of arcs usually include, number one, the change arc. So this one is most often referred to as the hero's journey, and I'm gonna go ahead and just drop both Frodo Baggins and Harry Potter as characters to think about for this particular arc. They are called out of their normal lives, some crazy shenanigans goes on, and then they're a hero by the end. Number two, the growth arc. So this is essentially when the character is the same person at the beginning and at the end, despite everything that they've been through. I'm gonna stick with the Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter references here real quick. Samwise Gamgee and Hermione Granger are really good character examples of this. They go through so much in those stories, but at the end, Sam is still Sam, Hermione is still Hermione. Number three, the fall arc. So here we think Sauron, Voldemort. You get the gist. That's obviously more of the straight up villains, but especially for me and writing dark fantasy right now, the fall arc is also really good for some of the main characters. especially if you consider a film example like Anakin Skywalker and his descent into becoming Darth Vader. It is also important to remember that not every character really has to go through some huge dramatic change. But personally for me, if none of the characters really go through much change, then it just becomes more of a plot-driven story than a character-driven one. And if you have seen my character development tutorial or any of my book reviews, then you'll know I'm really a big fan of character-driven over plot-driven novels. Another example of like a growth arc might be even like a Sherlock Holmes. But for that, I mean, you know, he's a good character throughout the entire thing, but the story itself revolves more around his detective skills, the mysteries that he solves, and all of that rather than any like crazy inner turmoil, apart from perhaps that little cocaine problem that he's got. And then the story obviously is also told through the first person eyes of Watson, but I also think that that's part of what makes Sherlock Holmes's linear character arc okay, because everything about him is literally told to us through the perspective of somebody else. But if Sherlock Holmes were written in a same kind of style as like a Harry Potter, where the narrator is also written through the point of view of the main character, it might not be as easy to remain in what they call a flat character arc. But it's also important to remember that even though all of these terms and definitions and everything arcs that I'm throwing at you, think maybe more about like the Pirate's Code, where it's all more of like a guideline than an actual like you must do this or else. Just stuff to keep in the back of your mind while you're plotting out your first draft. So now for either your main character or everybody else in between, we are going to decide on what type of character arc they are going to have. You can also take this time to get some more details as to how this arc is going to play out and weave through the plot of the story. I would just recommend doing that sooner rather than later, because it's gonna help you start to picture the setting of the story a lot more, and then hopefully you'll be ready to dive right on into that for next week's video. And if you are writing fantasy or any book that has more than one point of view chapter, then I would recommend doing this for everyone who is going to be telling the story at some point. And just in case there's anybody out there who doesn't know what I mean when I'm talking about point of view, it's really whoever's telling the story. That's all it is. First person stories use I. I did this, I did that, I went there, etc. Again, think Hunger Games. Second person is you. So it's whenever you're reading something, like if you're reading this on my blog and I say whenever you're reading something, I'm talking to you as the second person. Choose your own adventure type novels also fall under this category a lot. But if you want to read a kind of unconventional book written in the second person, then I would check out You by Carolyn Kepnes, which is also a TV show over on Netflix. But that is a good example of second person when it's not actually directly talking to you, the reader, but he's talking to you, the person he's in love with. Anyway, so third person is then whenever the he, she, it, they pronouns come along, and again, that's how Harry Potter is written. That was actually third person limited, I'm so sorry. Third person omniscient is when the narrator knows everyone and sees into multiple heads. Anna Karenina, best one you got there. So since you have your characters, your plot line, your plot arcs, and character arc all sorted out, you might as well decide on which type of point of view you're going to be writing this story in. And if you've ever read The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, that's also another good example of a book that uses both first and third person, and kind of then goes again into the whole genre building thing I've mentioned before. So mix it up. Do you. Do something different. It may be good, it may be bad, but breakouts only ever happen from people successfully breaking the molds they're intentionally trying to. But that would never happen if the boundaries of said mold weren't constantly shifted in the first place. Okay, so again here I've got my little screen up. I'm just really quickly going to give Vaeda, let's see, we're gonna give him the hero's journey arc. Just because. And since we are only a few weeks away from starting out National Novel Writing Month, and especially if you are finding yourself to be more of a plotter than a pantser, I have one final exercise that I would like for you to do with me before you go. And this is going to really help you if you want to start to really comb through your plot. First, write a beginning, middle, and end paragraph for each act of your story. 9 total paragraphs there, 5 sentences each. Even if you are a pantser, I still recommend doing this. But I mean, hey, feel free to try out that whole plantsing thing as well and just plot out little parts and go for it from there. After you have the breakdown of the beginning, middle, and end of each act, write a 2-sentence summary for each chapter you plan on having. After you've completed that, go back and write a beginning, middle, and end paragraph for every chapter you have planned that embellishes on those 2 sentences. Yes, that is a lot of work. That is also part of the reason that pantsers say that plotters take way too much time plotting out their books. And while I can agree that it is very time consuming to do this, what I will also say is that you kind of have to eventually, one way or the other. Especially if you're trying to get traditionally published, you're gonna have to write out a summary of everything that happens, spoilers and all, because usually after the initial query is accepted, I mean, they don't always just go straight into asking for a full manuscript. They usually want to have a breakdown of chapters and summaries and see how the whole entire story really looks before they actually accept it. That's not always true, but you might as well just get some of the brunt work done while you have the time before you even get started. I have found in the past that it's a lot easier to write out the summary before the book, because once it's out, it kind of turns into like, which parts do I pick? What is the most interesting? How do I write this summary after this whole entire book is already done? How do I take a 100,000 word novel and only put it into a 1,000 word summary? Do it now. Then you just have to edit the summary later on to make the little tweaks depending on how your story actually forms. So I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna do the 3 chapters for the different acts right now. I'm not gonna do the whole chapter by chapter thing because this, in my personal life timeline, has already taken me hours.
Just let me love you. 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 Just let me love you.
There we go, everybody. I personally, at least, now have my act summaries all up and ready to go. Again, if you are interested in reading those in depth, it will be on my corresponding website, also linked with a gajillion other things in the description box today. I am so happy that I have finally written out a plot for this. I'm really happy with what I have done of it today, but I would also just like to take a moment to remind you, especially if this is your first book, that this, again, it's like a guideline. You don't have to follow this plot that you've just created to a T. I've said it in another video, and I will say it again. Books, characters, plots, all of that, they take on a life of their own once you actually start to examine them. So just allow that to happen. Even this like already changed a lot from like what I started writing into what it became at the end. And this little exploration that I've just done on the 3 paragraphs for each act has gotten me really excited about writing this book. But while you are not forcing yourself to stay with this initial outline. You can still utilize it as an opportunity to at least think out the entire story, if for nothing more than to just figure out some pacing purposes. This is just another reason that I purposefully like to spend October getting ready for National Novel Writing Month anytime I consciously want to participate like this. Because even just a week or two of development on your novel before you just race through it in November can really help you out. Especially if this is your first time and you're just trying to like pants your way through a novel, you might at least try plotting first. But the choice is yours. As for this tutorial, I think I'm finally done. So make sure you come back on Tuesday for some tips on how to connect with your inner voice, so that we can start to really talk about ways of tackling all of these tropes and cliches and everything else that we've been talking about with your own unique voice. If you are enjoying these tutorials, videos, book reviews, and everything else in between, please make sure you hit that like button. Please share these videos so other people might benefit from them. And most importantly, hit that little subscribe button, followed by the bell notification, so you can be informed anytime I have a new tutorial, or book review, or topic, or advice, or prompt, or anything else coming at your way. I hope that you are enjoying these tutorials and that you have benefited from them so far. And since I am recording all of these before any of them see the light of day, I want to once again encourage you to share your work in my comments, either here or over on my website. And if you have been doing that so far, thank you so much. If you haven't, what are you waiting for? The Andrew in the future has probably already thanked you by responding to whatever comments you've left. But if he hasn't, I'm fired. So make sure you give this video a thumbs up if you loved it, or a thumbs down if you hated it. Because even if you think it's weird that I encourage thumbs downs, if you've made it this far, did you really hate it that much in the first place? See you all next week.